Welcome yet again to Motoroids, guys, the channel where you get the most detailed reviews of all the latest car and bike launches in India. My name is Amit, and this here arguably is the most advanced adventure bike in the world, the R1300 GS. It is replacing the legacy of the legendary 1200/1250 GS, which reigned supreme for 10 years. So let's start with what all has changed in terms of the looks, and as you can see here, the headlight has completely been transformed. This motorcycle used to have that headlight as its signature element, and now it looks very different from what it used to be. Has not gone down very well with a lot of fans, but a lot of other people have liked it. Also, the front fascia has completely changed, but the real change has happened under the skin, and this engine here is all new. The chassis is all new. The Tele lever suspension, which has been acclaimed by one and all, has now been transformed. It's called the Tele lever Evo now. And at the rear, the paralever suspension has also been changed. And all of that has resulted in a motorcycle which is not just lighter, because now it's lighter by up to 12 kgs, which is a massive improvement. The power has gone up by 9 HP. But putting all of that aside, just by having a look at it, it comes across as a more friendly motorcycle, something which is more accessible, something which is a lot less intimidating, more friendly. And it's not just in the way it looks, it's also in the way it rides now. Let's start talking about that engine first. It's more symmetrical now and it's lighter. The transmission has been pulled down and it releases more space for you when you're riding the motorcycle. So there's more space for the rider, and it really makes a lot of difference for an adventure motorcycle like this. So you have a lot more space here, which essentially is the big difference over the older 1250 GS. Apart from that, the shaft here, the drive shaft here is much stronger now. It uses more strong components, and the life of the shaft before you need to replace it is now 80,000 kilometers, which means that the new 1300 GS is more durable as well. Now, to understand the biggest technological evolution with the new R1300 GS, we need to understand first how the telelever suspension works. And this part of the bike, which generally moves where you have travel, is essentially just a rock solid piece of metal. The suspension is right here, and there is another suspension which is behind, which generally is the gas canister. Now, how the telelever suspension works is that when you have damping and suspension, which is a spring rating, to be controlled by the suspension system, while you can increase the firmness by dialing up the damping, you cannot have a workaround on the spring ratings. But BMW have found a way around it by introducing another set of springs in the canister where you generally have only gas or oil. And that spring comes into play when you dial up the suspension. When you want it to be harder, it becomes firmer, and the spring ratings come together to give it a much firmer behavior. Not just that, this entire suspension system reduces the amount of difference that you have while you're accelerating or braking, in the sense that the wheelbase, which changes dynamically, when you brake it becomes shorter, when you accelerate it becomes a little bit longer because of the dynamic forces. All of those have been reduced by introducing a stiffer triple clamp here. And there is another element which flexes in order to counter that dynamic wheelbase by up to 50%. And how all of that comes together is this motorcycle feels a lot more stable while you're going around corners. There is less variation in terms of how the motorcycle should behave. So the behavior of the motorcycle in terms of the suspension and the wheelbase is more stable, and while cornering it feels very close to a proper sport bike. Just like the front suspension, the wizardry has been brought into the rear paralever suspension also. And now this motorcycle can increase or decrease its ride height based on the rider's requirement. So while the ride height of the previous motorcycle was a bit of a trouble for a lot of people because it was very heavy and shorter riders found it very difficult, the ride height can be brought down to as low as 800 mm, which is very accessible. And on the top of the line motorcycle, which is a trophy edition, can go all the way up to 870 mm, which is very large range. So right from going hardcore off the road to keeping it a little bit low for road use, this motorcycle can now increase or decrease its ride height based on the rider's requirement, which is such a blessing. Now, apart from that, there is another feature which is really useful, and You can use the Jackup feature, which allows you to compensate for the panniers that you have. So you can jack the bike up if you have a lot of weight on the panniers. So the Jackup feature also helps you put the motorcycle on the main stand. Apart from that, a lot of weight has been shaved off the motorcycle with the chassis, which has been completely redesigned. So from the main chassis as well as to the subframe, everything has been redesigned and it's sturdier as well as lighter. So it incorporates a more advanced chassis now, and it really shows in the way the motorcycle rides. Apart from that, the very well known and acclaimed instrument console of this motorcycle also has seen a lot of improvements. And let's have a look at the new sandwich button, which would be of some interest to you. Now, before we start talking about the new instrument console controls, let's talk about the new key as well. And you have to give this key a little bit of a wiggle before it starts getting functional, and then you have to press this button here for the instrument console and the ignition to come on. And once you have done that, you realize that you have this new special button here, which BMW likes calling the sandwich button. And how it helps you is that it allows you access to some of the most critical functions right from here. You don't have to go inside the menus, and some of the most critical functions, like say grip heating, the increase or decrease in the height of the windscreen, which is motorized by the way, DTC, damping, etc. All of these functions can be accessed directly using this wheel here, and you can access it directly without wasting any time. And it not just saves you time, it also allows you to keep your focus on the road without having to go into the complicated menus. You also have this little placeholder here, which allows you to fit a BMW genuine accessory navigation system with very detailed maps, and you can control it directly with the buttons here. The tank size here has gone down by 1 liter, although the fuel efficiency has gone up, and it's about 20 kmpl. And I'll talk more about how this motorcycle rides in a bit. But let's get done with all the other physical changes on the motorcycle first. Now, apart from being a motorcycle which is faster, smoother, and more manageable, this motorcycle is also more aerodynamically stable. It slips through the air better. And a critical part of that is the new windscreen, which can now be increased in height or be brought down in a motorized manner like this. And while it's on its topmost setting, must I say that it feels like one of the best windscreens out there and really deflects a lot of air. You cannot really feel any wind buffeting, and it's one of the most effective windscreens I've seen anywhere on any motorcycle. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you would want to know how the new Boxer engine sounds like, how the exhaust sounds like. So let's fire the engine up and listen to its exhaust. It's got a character of its own, and while it's not as characterful as say an inline 4, a V4, but it has its own rotty character. And what I can tell you is that it sounds very smooth, and while you're riding it, it feels like there is absolutely no friction. Now, an important aspect of touring is the seat comfort, and one important thing is that not just is the seat, the rider seat itself, very well cushioned, it's tapered, it's streamlined, so your legs can actually go down even if you're not very tall. For example, I am 5 feet 10, not the tallest of the riders for this kind of a bike specifically. And as you can see, I can easily put my toes down and I can handle this motorcycle. But not just the seat, but even the tank has this soft to touch material. And the pillion seat also seems very comfortable, although by some accounts, it seems like the seat is quite high and it's not the easiest for the shorter riders to get on. Also, as compared to the 1250, the seat is not as well padded and as big, as comfortable as the outgoing motorcycle. So that's been a complaint. The rear stay, the grab rails, etc. have been designed fantastically well. You can put a top box and side panniers very easily. And they come as a genuine BMW accessory as well, with not just lighting but a USB cable as well. As opposed to the outgoing model, this motorcycle gets some really cool features, and let me just mention them. So it now gets heated grips, it gets a keyless ride as I mentioned. So the keyless feature can be used for steering, ignition as well as fuel lock. It gets DBC, MSR, it gets the BMW Motorrad fully integral ABS Pro, which means that not just will the ABS at both ends kick in when you apply the front brake, but beyond a certain speed, when you apply the rear brake as well, the front brake will come in. It also gets cruise control with brake function, which is DCC. Also, the standard battery here is a lithium ion battery, which is stronger. Also, it now gets hand protection guard with integrated turn signals, and it also gets an intelligent emergency call function. Another great advancement on the R1300 GS is its radar-based capabilities, and it provides this motorcycle with some really stunning features, and it now comes with some really serious assistant features. And here is a look at all of those new features that this motorcycle comes with. With more power, torque and less weight, the R1300 GS has undergone a significant overhaul, and the biggest difference is felt in its on-road performance. The new shift cam engine dishes out 145 HP at 7,750 RPM and 149 Nm at 6,500 RPM, with the limiter cutting in at 9,000 revs. It's completely redesigned, weighs 6.5 kg less and has a higher percentage of liquid cooling to enable a higher compression ratio too. Over the 1250, it feels significantly better mannered on the road, and even the bigger, stronger riders can feel that it's a much more accessible and nimbler bike right from the word go. It feels smoother, peppier, lighter, turns more like a sport bike than an ADV, and has a buttery smooth, completely vibe-free feel. Some newbies think that the R1300 GS is an off-roader. It's an ADV. And thinking of it as an off-roader is not correct. It's primarily a long-distance machine which can also off-road a bit if the need arises. In that sense, what BMW has done makes it arguably the most comfortable ADV, which feels impeccable on the road. With a segment best fuel efficiency of about 20 kmpl, it has a theoretical range of 380 km, which is great. I'm mentioning this because of all its rivals, that is the Multistrada V4, the Tiger 1200 or the 1290 Super Duke. Given the GS's comfort and efficiency, I would pick this every single time for journeys where I need to travel long and far. Sure, it doesn't feel the fiercest or the sportiest, with the Multistrada V4 sounding and feeling the raunchiest of the lot, but it's amply quick with fantastic mid-range torque and a poise that masks its speed deceptively. So 100 feels like a 60, a 150 feels like 100, and all this while the GS feels poised, calm and capable to handle those speeds without any nerviness. The sound of the bike isn't the most evocative with its typical boxer note, but it's the smoothest and the most efficient in its class. The new rigid frame, revamped front end, upgraded sports brakes and forged rims make the new GS feel lighter and more agile. Honestly, it's a rather new feeling when you ride it, and in a good way. As you squeeze the lever, there is no dive. Braking and acceleration doesn't upset the bike by much. You don't feel as connected with the road in the sense that the suspension travel that you are so used to isn't as perceptible, but it's smoother, stabler, and it's fantastic for long distance touring. It's only on the sharper ridges, more upsetting obstacles, and at speed that you feel a distinct bump at the bars, which would make you feel the bike is not as plush as a GS should be, but for the odd pothole, undulations, and even rough roads, the GS gobbles up everything that comes its way. On the fork clamp, the 1250 had a movable ball joint which took care of the movement of the fork. The new 1300 has what BMW calls a flex element, which is even more effective in reducing the fork's undesired movement, reducing dive and offering a more sure-footed ride feel. The paralever Evo setup at the rear improves comfort and increases traction too. The handlebars feel easily accessible and wide, and the ergonomics are spot on. There's more room around the foot pegs as well. Along with the 850 to 820 mm electronic ride height adjustment, you can also go all the way up to 890 and down to 800 with the slimmer seats. Having said that, it's a heavy, hefty bike, and while the tall, strong riders would feel more at home, the shorter, slenderer riders may find it extremely difficult if they have to paddle it or maneuver it at slow speeds. The handlebar fall easy to the hand while straddling, and as long as you have traction on the surface, the big GS can go over obstacles without a whimper. There is the option of dynamic semi-active suspension as well, which adapts to the current riding conditions and riding style to give you the optimal damping and therefore the best ride quality. Then there is the adaptive ride height at either end too, which automatically drops the bike down as you come to a standstill so that you can more easily get your feet down.
You've got a phone box on the tank with a charging point and keyless ignition option too. There are 7 riding modes to choose from: Eco, Rain, Road, Dynamic, Dynamic Pro, Enduro and Enduro Pro, of which you can choose any 4 at any given time to choose directly from the instrument console. Here on your screen you can see what each one of these modes do. I think other bikes like the Tiger 1200, the KTM 1290 Super Adventure or the Ducati Multistrada V4 all feel a bit more exciting in terms of the way the engine delivers its power. They feel wilder and sportier. But in terms of comfort, refinement and tech, the GS aces them all. It definitely is the one for those super long journeys. The new R1300 GS is available in 5 variants and you can see each one of them with the respective features you get on each one on the screen right now. Here is a comparison of the BMW R1300 GS with its primary rivals on your screen. There of course is a whole range of accessories too, including an all-new dedicated navigation screen, panniers, top box, crash guards, exhaust and more.
All in all, the R1300 GS builds on the legendary legacy of its predecessor and builds on every aspect that made its predecessor famous. It's better every way you look at. The engine is much smoother, it's compact, it's lighter. The motorcycle chassis suspension has been improved as a generational leap. The design is less intimidating and can now accommodate less well-built and smaller riders as well. It's smoother, it's faster, and overall, if you want to take it out on the road as well as off it, it's a much improved machine. Not to mention the new radar-based technologies that equip it with some really cool assistant features. So if you're looking for the best adventure motorcycles out there, the R1300 GS should definitely be on your list, and there's no way you can make your decision without taking a test ride of this motorcycle. I really hope that you liked this video and you got all your questions answered about this beautiful motorcycle in this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to Motoroids, and this is your friend Amit Changani signing off. Rev hard, rev free, and ride safe.